guys, so my name is Anna Bogard, and this week in the Genesis book, we are going to be going over chapter 6, and more specifically, chapters 22 to 30 in Genesis. It had us read 26 to 30, but it really focuses in on 29 and 30 because that's where a lot of the juicy God works happen. And so we start off by getting to know who Jacob is. And Jacob is the son of Isaac. Isaac has two sons, Esau and Jacob. And Isaac is a descendant of Abraham, who we learned about in previous chapters. So Isaac had a blessing to give out to one of his sons, Esau or Jacob. And Jacob and Rebekah had the idea to kind of trick Isaac into giving Jacob the blessing. So their trick worked, and Jacob gets the blessing. And Esau gets very upset because he's the older one. He's the one that was supposed to have it all along. So out of revenge, he was planning to kill Jacob. But Rebekah knew about this, and so she told Jacob to go stay with his uncle Laban for a little while, just until Esau kind of calmed down from everything that happened and kind of forgave Jacob for what happened. So Jacob arrives at Laban's house, and Laban has two daughters. There's Leah and Rachel. Now Leah was portrayed as the more ugly sister. She was the older one, and they also said that she had weak eyes. And then Rachel was the one that had the good body, the good looks. She was the younger one. She had the better personality. She was just all around at first looks, Jacob naturally just gravitated towards Rachel more. So Jacob instantly fell in love with Rachel, and he was willing to do anything to marry her. And so Laban made a deal, and in Genesis 29:18, it says, Jacob was in love with Rachel and said, I'll work for you 7 years in return for your younger daughter, Rachel. So Jacob was like, perfect, work for you for 7 years. He even said it felt like a few days. So the 7 years go by, and it's time for him to marry Leah. So Laban sets up a whole wedding, a reception, sets up a whole night for them to make love and all that. And but little did Jacob know, Laban actually tricked Jacob, and he ended up marrying Leah and ended up sleeping with Leah. And my first question was well, why would Leah be into that? Why would she want to marry someone that's not actually in love with her? He's clearly in love with Rachel. Rachel's clearly in love with him. Why would she want to intervene and play along with Laban's trick? But then I got to thinking Leah is portrayed as the unloved or the ugly one in the family, and probably out of desperation, she felt that if she married Jacob, he would just switch from falling in love with Rachel and just fall in love with Leah. So Jacob wakes up the next morning and realizes that it was Leah that he married. And he was like, dude, what the heck happened? I was supposed to marry Rachel. What's the deal? I want to marry Rachel, and I'm going to do whatever it takes again. So Laban set up a new plan, and that was in Genesis 29:27. It says, finish this daughter's bridal week, then we will give you the younger one also, in return for another 7 years of work. So then we get into the idea of polygamy and having multiple wives. And in Genesis 2:24, God's plan for marriage was that is why a man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife, and they become one in flesh. So just because things like polygamy happen and sleeping with multiple people, that doesn't mean that God still can't use that to his original plan. In this specific instance, the polygamy in Jacob's case, it ended up producing the 12 sons, which later become the 12 tribes of Israel. So although this sounds oh my God, they had multiple wives, why would God let that happen? He actually uses it later on, and you get to see the true intentions of his plan. So Jacob finishes the bridal week with Leah, and he immediately marries Rachel the next week, sleeps with her, and begins the next 7 years of work. I originally was just like, well, how would Leah feel? Like, that would actually suck if you were married to someone and they just went and married your sister the next week because they thought that you weren't good enough. They weren't satisfied with it at one bit, that they literally had to go marry someone else the next week. So she's in deep pain right now. She's feeling very lonely and unseen and unloved, picked over, and all those things. But through all of those things, God saw her in her pain and decided to allow her to conceive a child while Rachel remained childless. So the first child that Leah conceived, she named him Reuben. And she took that as a sign, like, oh, God gave me this gift. Surely Jacob will love me now. She took the gift that God gave her and thought of herself and didn't truly think of the intentions that God had behind it. And she was like, oh, 100% Jacob's going to love me now. We have a shared child. Like, how could he not love me? How could he not love his own son? And I just feel like sometimes we take the gifts and experiences that we beg God so much to step in and help us with, and then once he steps in and he's right in front of our faces with, like, here you go, and is like sitting there, we're just kind of like, thanks, we take it and go and do whatever we want with it, instead of actually taking it and like thanking God for it and using it in the way that he would want us to use it, and not just for our own intentions and our own wants and needs. God saw that Leah took it as a sign, like, oh, Jacob will be in love with me now. So he was trying to get over to her again, like, I see you, I see you. And so he sends her another son, and this time she names it Simon. And then in Genesis 29:33 at the end, because the Lord heard that I'm not loved, he gave me this one too. She viewed this as a pity gift from God instead of a token of his affection. So God was trying to show his affection for, like, I love you. Whether Jacob loves you, whether anybody in the world loves you, that doesn't matter. I love you so much. Here's a gift of a child, 2 childs at this point. Like, why don't you see me? And she just takes it again and was like, this is just pity at this point. Like, Jacob's not going to fall in love with me. Here's just another kid for me to take care of. So then the third son comes and she names him Levi. And she thinks, now, at last, my husband will become attached to me. Leah had the wrong mind in all of this. She missed the unearned and freely given love that God was showing her. She was just straight in tunnel vision. And I feel like sometimes we focus on the outcome or the prize behind everything. She thought in this case the prize was Jacob, but really the prize is how much our Heavenly Father loves us and how much he deeply cares about us. So then there's a hard truth question at the bottom of page 141. And it says, be honest. Do you see yourself as worthy of God's love? And I ended up circling 2 down here. I circled, maybe he thinks about me and I know that I'm chosen by God. Because there are some instances where I'm like, I just feel like God's forgotten about me. Like, as everybody else in this world has. I feel super lonely. I think no one's there for me. And I'm just like, even God doesn't even see or hear me because I'm praying and he's not delivering or answering in the time that I want. But then there's also other times that I feel very loved by God and I feel close to him and I feel like it doesn't matter what is going on around me in the world. No matter what, like, God is there for me and he's there listening and hearing me and he loves me so much. So that's why I circled both, because I do switch back and forth, but I always have that constant reminder that he is there for me and I don't always just recognize it in the moment. Then the next question says, think about it. Whose attention, approval, and affirmation is most important to you right now and why? The 2 things that I wrote down were my friends and my parents. I feel like the attention and approval from my friends, I like receiving because I like to feel wanted and appreciated by somebody, and I like giving my love to someone, and seeing that like love back. So I always want to be seen and heard from them. And then my parents, I wrote down, I feel like I just get affirmation from school, and like I feel like I need to be successful and make them proud, because they have helped me so much, and I don't want to like let them down by like failing in my hopes and dreams. So those are the two things that I would say I struggle with attention and approval from. So then God finally gives Leah a fourth son, and his name is Judah. Finally, at this point, Leah has shifted her focus, and she turned to the Lord and saw that in all of these gifts that he's giving her, he's been right there, and he's been showing her his love, and like she's finally realized that he's been there the whole time, and that he has seen her when nobody else has. And then I underlined, because I thought it was cool, at the end it said, but God used all of that baby making for his purpose. It's just another step in the fulfillment of God's promise. And sometimes I feel like things happen in our lives that we're like, why would God do this to me? Like, why is this happening? But in the long run, he truly sees us and hears us, and it's just all in the plan that he has for us in our lives. And I also underlined that Leah, despite her neglect, had a great purpose in God's plan. Each and every single one of us have a great purpose and plan with God, whether in the moment we see it, or in the moment we appreciate it and don't actually know the intentions behind it. In the end, I feel like this week just clearly touches on how God sees us and how much love God actually has for us. And that no matter if we feel like people aren't seeing us and hearing us here on earth, like from your friends, your family, your boyfriends, school, grades, any of that, through all of that, God will always be there for you, and God always will see you and use you for his great plan in the long run. So yeah, I really liked this week. It was a good reminder, because I feel like everybody can feel lonely and unheard and unloved recently, but this was a great reminder that God is always there for us, and I felt that it was a good week. So I hope you guys enjoyed and got a lot out of it. And yeah, we will see you next week.